Shaheen's question with regard to Global Engagement Center, I continue to have a deep concern that we don't have somebody there on a permanent basis leading that organization at a time when its mission is so important. And so I hope you'll take that message back, Mr. Secretary. And, Leah Bray is the acting, but Senator Shaheen, can you think of a more important time for us to actually coordinate our efforts in terms of fighting back against this disinformation and the fact that the State Department can't do the simple step of appointing somebody permanently to that and giving it a higher status at a time when we're trying to get more funding into that agency is a mystery to me. It's not a confirmed position. So Secretary Fernandez, Senator Shaheen and I were just at your alma mater for a reunion, and she spoke eloquently about the issues in Ukraine, and I tried to keep up, but there was a lot of interest. Everybody showed up because, this is the crisis of our times in terms of the ability to defend democracy and freedom against tyranny and authoritarianism, and in this case, a brutal conquest. So it is a time where the economic statecraft, is mixed with the diplomacy that we are normally more engaged in. And specifically, right now the UN has worked out this arrangement with Turkey and Russia and Ukraine, apparently to be able to allow some of this grain to be able to go, including to places like Africa where people are literally starving with this global food crisis. And yet within 12 hours of that agreement being penned, which said that Russia would not attack any export facilities at any of the Ukrainian ports that were under discussion, they bombed Odessa. With 4 missiles, 2 of which got through. And yesterday, night before last, I was on the floor of the Senate with a photograph showing the bombing and the impact of it. So obviously not to be trusted, and that's the kind of message we need to get out to ensure people do not believe the Russian disinformation in places like Africa. But do you have any update on that, Secretary Fernandez, where we are with regard to stopping the Russian attacks on the port, certainly, but then more importantly, getting this grain out to the rest of the world?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and I'm glad you mentioned our alma mater. Look, Russia is using food as a weapon. We know that, and it's blaming the U.S. for the consequences. Just the UN tells us that since the invasion of Ukraine, we've got an additional 70 million people around the world that have fallen into poverty. We welcomed the agreement. At the same time, we just don't trust Putin. I think the events that you described show that we have to be careful. What we have done on food security is, we've provided almost $5 billion worth of food aid around the world. We've convened the Food Security Ministerial, which attracted over 100 countries to talk about what we're going to do to try and deal with this crisis. We are every day. I tell people that I wake up thinking about Ukraine, I go to sleep thinking about Ukraine, and in between we try and help Ukraine. And it's the food security issue goes beyond Ukraine, and it shows, and this goes to the misinformation point, that this is not just a European problem. It's the effects of Putin's invasion and brutality in Ukraine affects the entire world, and you're seeing that in Africa as well.
I agree. My time is limited here, so let me get into another result of what Russia chose to do, and it was a war of choice, this brutal invasion, and that's on the energy front. And you're right, it's affecting the entire globe in terms of energy prices, but specifically our European allies. Those in the region, I was in Moldova and Romania recently, their biggest issue they raised with me, apart from the Russian invasion generally, is energy. And my understanding is that despite some good work U.S. TDA has done, Director Bong, that the Development Finance Corporation, as an example, has self-imposed restrictions that hinders their efforts to work on all energy sectors, including liquefied natural gas. Is that possible? I mean, we're telling the Europeans, stop depending on Russia for your liquefied natural gas. Instead, we'll provide you some. And some of our agencies are being told that they can't work on liquefied natural gas because it's a fossil fuel, even though it's cleaner than the alternative, and even though we're begging the Europeans to do the right thing and stop feeding the war machine with sending $870 million a day, which is roughly what they send for oil and gas. Is that true? Can I hear from either one of you about that?
Want me to take it? All right, I'll take it. And look, let me be clear. The DFC is not prohibited from energy, from these kinds of projects. It's, what we have done is instituted an additional review for any carbon-intensive projects. So the answer to your question, Senator, is no, there is no prohibition. I will tell you this, and this is something I said earlier. We are now the largest exporter of LNG to Europe. We have tripled our exports this year. 75% of our
Let me ask you this: Are they allowed to work on nuclear power, or is that also subject to restrictions and further review? Okay. I mean, I'm in Romania, and they're begging for us to help them with these SMRs, with these small nuclear reactors. They want the Export-Import Bank, which is not represented here today, as DFC is not, unfortunately, because I'd like to talk to both of them. But we have got to help Romania with this, and it's absolutely essential to Moldova also, which is obviously in a very vulnerable position. So anyway, I appreciate the testimony today and echo the comments of some of my colleagues in terms of us having a more aggressive and realistic economic aspect to our diplomacy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Coons.
Thank you very much, Chairman Menendez, Ranking Member Risch, and our panel of witnesses. And